So I want to talk a little bit about AEW and what's going on with them and how they can sort of turn the ship around. So I will say that for the past month, maybe past 6 weeks or so, AEW has improved a lot. It's become a lot more of a wrestling show with storylines, and it feels better. Like I genuinely enjoy watching Dynamite and usually Collision. Last week's Collision had a great match between Kenny Omega and MJF. The show was balanced with promos, angles, and matches, and it wasn't just a house show. The problem with Dynamite for a long time has been that it's felt sort of like a house show, and there's very few storylines in AEW. But now there's plenty of storylines, most of them involving MJF. He is, without a doubt, the centerpiece of the company. He's the world champion, so he should be the centerpiece of the company. And all of the major angles revolve around him, with the exception of the Christian and Edge feud, involving Nick Wayne and Darby Allin and all those guys. So on this video, I want to discuss what AEW needs to do to turn the ship around. AEW has been kind of in a weird spot lately because they have not been getting big attendances. All In was an outlier, and it was also in a foreign country. Huge amount of numbers there, but it's no secret right now that AEW's TV ratings are pretty stagnant, and their attendance is downright scary. They'll book a 18,000 seat arena and fill up like 4,000 seats only. And it's the opposite with WWE. So the question is, why are people not going out to AEW shows? The first thing that some folks believe is that it's because of the economy, because of the problems now with how expensive food is, and it's not easy to go out and go see wrestling shows all the time. Now, while there may be something to that, I don't think that's a reasonable enough explanation, because WWE's been doing tremendous houses, selling out everywhere they go. They are on a hot streak, and right now, folks, at this moment, we're in the middle of a little mini boom period with the WWE and even AEW for what they've done. But the question is, how do you fix this problem with the attendance? How do you make people come out to your shows? I have some ideas. First of all, the one thing that you don't want to do, that I'm hoping he doesn't do, is try to hot shot stuff. Like right now is not really the time to hot shot. What I mean by hot shot is try to do some kind of like swerve where you have a bunch of title changes and stuff like that. Because here's the issue with AEW. AEW has introduced way too many championships, and they don't mean anything. I don't mean just the AEW titles. I mean also the Ring of Honor titles. We see sometimes some of the Japanese and Mexican titles. Like, title matches don't draw in AEW because there are so many champions, and none of the championships mean anything except for the one that MJF has, the AEW World Heavyweight title. You can make an argument the Trios title, or maybe even the TNT title, or the tag team title might mean something, but they really don't draw like the World Heavyweight title does, and that's because of MJF being so great. So if you analyze the last the last Dynamite from a couple weeks ago, last week, the first segment with MJF opening against Juice Robinson and that whole story, that segment by itself did like 900,000 people. It was over 900,000. And then once the segment ended, it dropped. 200,000 people stopped watching. So that means that right now your biggest television draw is MJF. Like it or not, that's the way it is. Now, what do you do with that? Well, you have to sprinkle MJF's storylines all throughout the show to keep people intrigued. And you have to have something going on near the end of the show and build up to it. MJF right now is more valuable than even Edge, and that means something. And that's saying something too, because Adam Copeland is a big star, but MJF is the guy that draws eyeballs to that show. So I like the fact that they're making a lot of the angles surround MJF. I like the fact that he's like the centerpiece of the company right now, and that everybody wants the AEW title, but they really need to get rid of some of these titles. Not just that, but their roster is way too big. I mean, that roster is massive. That roster is like, they have like 200 people under contract or some insane number like that, including Ring of Honor. They don't need that many people. They should shave all that off, cut it down to about maybe 80 to 90 people total among, Rampage, not Rampage, Dynamite and Collision. Rampage is like a bonus show now. It doesn't really mean much. But if you do it like that, right, I feel like you have to pick a few guys to feature on the show every week. They've kind of been doing that now lately, but they got to continue to do that. Pick a handful of guys to feature every week and don't just have dudes show up and then disappear. Set things up now that you're doing monthly pay-per-views where you alternate the pay-per-view cycles as you bring in guys. I just think that roster is way too massive and not enough guys get enough screen time to get over. I like what they've been doing with MJF and with Strickland. I like that storyline a lot. And of course, Christian. Those three guys are great. Show more of them. Center the show around them. Also, try to have something in the show that's intriguing, not just segment. Focus more on the stories. And here's the important thing. When I mentioned hot shotting earlier, the reality is if we actually look at other companies and historically how to fix these kinds of problems, the first thing that Tony Khan has to really understand is that it's not going to happen overnight. AEW's downfall didn't happen overnight. It was a slow sort of, little by little, every week it chipped away, and the new car smell with the company is gone now. CM Punk is gone. The new car smell is gone. Now AEW is what it is. They've got about 700,000 fans that will stick around and watch everything, maybe 600,000. They'll watch every show. They're the most loyal ones. You've already got them. Tony Khan has to stop booking for the internet. That has to stop. This idea of winning Booker of the Year from Meltzer, I've criticized him about this before. It means nothing, especially with the fact they're not drawing. They need to little by little build up characters. I think MJF's thing works. Keep doing that. This is going to take time. This is going to take weeks, if not months, to re-educate the audience into feeling like they're going to go to something important when they go to the weekly shows. It's going to take time. So pick a handful of guys that you think you can really run with and have them be the focus of the show. I would say maybe 6 guys. You can have other angles, you can have other matches, but pick 6 dudes that are going to be on the show every week. Women too, if you want, up to you. 6 characters, doesn't have to be men. 6 characters that you want on TV every week, and focus on their storylines only. Just on those 6 characters. Make them the centerpiece of the show. You can have other little things going on, minor feuds and whatnot, but you want to have 6 major feuds, 6 major stories going. If you want to do 5, do 5, but focus on those primarily. Everything else is secondary. Focus on that primarily, and try to focus on the strengths of the characters and getting that over as opposed to the weaknesses. Try to focus on that. So, with that being said, I think it will take time. I think that what they've been doing lately has been a lot of fun, but I think the problem is that AEW needs to re-educate their audience. And look at WWE. The Bloodline storyline really started in about 2020, and it was slowly building up 2021, 2022, and really in 2022 is when the Bloodline angle really got cooking. So it took them about 2 years. And I'm not saying it'll take AEW that long, but it might. It genuinely might. And I know that some people who are fans of AEW or Tony Khan might not want to hear that, but it does take time. Because it takes time to get the audience to love a character enough to care about him. MJF is the guy who they've got. Christian, they got him. Hangman has the potential to do it. So does Kenny Omega. But I'm not sure if they're really going to focus on that. But it's something they should focus on. You've already got a great roster. You've already got tons of great athletes. You don't need to do too much as far as hiring WWE guys. That needs to stop. Don't hire any more people. Focus on the ones you've got and make it matter. Make it matter. There's too many situations where guys get taken off TV for a long time. People wonder where they're at because the roster's just too bloated. It's too big. Even with Collision, even with 5 hours of television every week, it's too big. You also got women on there as well. And the women are obviously not on the level of WWE's women roster. Obviously, that's the case. But still, like, a lot of folks feel like they haven't booked the women right. However, when you look at the roster of women, how many of them really draw for AEW? Now, this is not a sexist thing. I'm being honest. Look at the women. How many of them actually draw ratings? There are a couple. There are a couple. We know for a fact that during the NXT wars, characters like Riho and characters like Hikaru Shida drew, right? So that could work. Do more personality profiles on the characters you want to get over, the women you want to get over. I don't think you have to have a women's match on every show. I think some fans think you do, but I think you should have more of a focus on getting the characters of the women over. Wrestling works when people care about the characters. Sami Zayn, Roman Reigns, that whole storyline from 2022 that went into Elimination Chamber, people really cared about that. You gotta have a situation like that where people care about your characters. And don't be afraid to have fun. The Adam Cole stuff with Roderick Strong is great. I love that stuff. MJF, that's some of the most fun stuff they've done. The problem is people aren't going out to the shows. You've got to make them feel like going to the shows matters. Does that mean you give away a lot of main events on television? Not necessarily, but remember how back in the Attitude Era, you had, like, let's say you had 3 major feuds, or even the Ruthless Aggression Era. You had 3 major feuds going on, right? Babyface versus heel. You could have those 6 guys in a 6-man tag. That way you take all of the feuds that you got going on, put them together in a 6-man, sort of have them blend into each other. And that right there will help you get the characters on the show in a meaningful way. You understand what I'm saying? I don't think Tony Khan really understands that that's a very easy method to get a lot of guys on the show without, and not every week. You don't want to do it every week, but if you're in a situation where you kind of want to crunch together some angles, you can do something like that. You know, you could do something easily like that and combine different feuds. You could do Edge, Darby Allin, and Sting, and this match should have already happened, against Christian, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne. Why haven't they done that 6-man? Maybe they'll do it at the pay-per-view. But like that right there, you're taking different feuds and put them together. And it's really one big feud, but you're utilizing all your characters. And you could even do promo stuff before and after. Easy, man. Christian's the man when it comes to this. Don Callis, also a great promo. Focus the guys that can do great promos. Let them do great promos. MJF, Don Callis. Strickland's really found his way. Swerve Strickland, he's becoming the guy very, very soon. Hangman Page, great babyface promo. Kenny Omega, same thing. Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, in my opinion, are way more likable than the Young Bucks. Way more likable. Those are the members of the Elite you really got to focus on and let them be like these courageous baby faces without having them steamroll the roster. And really, I think that every week on AEW, there should be a personality profile on a specific wrestler. Like, talk about how Kenny Omega's into video games. I'm sure a lot of fans don't even know that, and they can relate to him. Talk about the kind of hobbies Hangman does. WWF did this back in the 80s, the 90s, and specifically in 97 with their quote-unquote quasi-shoots with Mick Foley and Goldust. You can do things like that. Those sit-down interviews, I think, work. Have a personality profile on, I don't know, the Kingdom. Since they're with Roddy, talk about their history. Talk about things they like to do. You want to have the audience relate to the characters, mostly the baby faces, so that way they say, wow, like, they're just like me. They like the same things I like. Like, if they're fans of, like, sports, or if they're fans of, like, I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh, whatever, talk about that. People will gravitate towards them more. People like characters, man. That's what draws. Not matches. Matches don't matter. Matches are the end of the story. You want to get people to get into the story and get into that first, so that way they want to pay for the matches. So that's what AEW needs to do. They have to be very, very, very patient with this, but I do think it's possible. With that being said, I'll bring this video to a close. What do you think? Leave comments down below on what AEW can do to improve. I'm curious about reading it. Take care. See you soon.